She ignored my guidance. 4 words. That was all it took for Shelby to wipe away everything I had given her. 27 months of following her every instruction, every formula, every single direction. She whispered into my ear. The board members sat watching as she stood there with this look of hurt disappointment painted on her features, telling them how I had ruined batch after batch of industrial coding, how my careless work ethics had destroyed millions in product, how I refused to listen when she tried to help me do better. I could feel their judgment landing on my shoulders, all those important people in their business attire, looking at me like I was the problem that needed removing. Shelby kept talking, her voice dripping with regret about having to report my failures, about how she had tried so hard to mentor me, but I just would not learn. And I smiled, because Shelby had absolutely no clue what I had been doing while she thought I was just her obedient little worker bee. Before I tell you what happened in that room, I need you to do something for me. Thank you so much for listening to my story. It means everything that you are here, giving me your time. I know you could be anywhere else right now, but you chose to be here with me. Could you leave a quick comment letting me know where you are tuning in from? I read every single one, and it honestly makes my day to know people from all over are hearing what I went through. All right, let me take you back to where this whole thing started. My name is Faye, 29 years old, born and raised in a tiny apartment above a laundromat where the smell of detergent was just part of breathing. I never went to some fancy university, never had connections or family money to open doors. What I had was a community college chemistry certificate and a brain that would not stop asking questions about how things worked. I spent my 20s bouncing between lab jobs that paid barely enough to cover rent, always getting passed over for promotions because I did not have the right degree or the right last name or the right whatever excuse they invented that week. Then, I saw the job posting. Quality inspector at a facility that manufactured industrial coatings for bridges, buildings, ships, the kind of stuff that has to last decades in brutal weather. The pay was decent. The requirements matched what I actually knew. I applied that same night, rewrote my application 4 times to make sure every word was perfect. 3 weeks later, I got the call. My first day at that facility felt like winning something I did not know I was competing for. The building sprawled across acres, all gray metal and purpose. Huge mixing vats, storage units, testing labs with equipment I had only read about in textbooks. I walked through those doors at 6 in the morning, with my new badge clipped to my shirt, terrified I would mess up and lose this chance. That was when I met Shelby. She was the quality manager, which meant she was my direct boss, the person who would decide if I kept this job or joined the unemployment line. Shelby was 42. With this way of moving through the facility like she owned every inch of it, people stepped aside when she walked past. Supervisors asked her opinion on decisions. She had worked there for 16 years and knew the coding business better than anyone. Or at least that was what everyone kept telling me. You are going to do great here, Shelby said during our first private meeting in her work area. I can tell you are hungry to learn. That matters more than some expensive diploma. Her words felt like permission to finally belong somewhere. I wanted so badly to prove she was right about me. The training started immediately. Shelby walked me through the testing process. For every coding batch the facility produced, thousands of gallons would get mixed according to specific formulas. Then a sample would come to me. My job was to run tests, checking viscosity, adhesion, curing time, temperature resistance, all the properties that made these coatings worth the huge amounts of money customers paid for them. But Shelby had her own special procedure she wanted me to follow. The standard tests miss things, she explained one morning, about 2 weeks into my training. She was showing me a particular solution she kept in an unmarked container in the supply area. I developed this additive years ago. You mix exactly 3.7 milliliters of this into each test sample before you run your analysis. It helps identify weak formulations that would fail later in real-world conditions. I watched as she demonstrated the exact method. Draw the sample from the batch, add her solution, mix thoroughly for 90 seconds, then run all the standard tests. If anything fails, you reject the entire batch, she said. Better to catch problems here than have a bridge coating fail in 5 years and face lawsuits. Understand? I understood. At least I thought I did. This stays between us, Shelby added, her voice dropping lower. The corporate people do not appreciate my methods. They think I am too cautious, too expensive with rejections. But you and I know quality matters more than production quotas. That made sense to me. Of course, the business side would want to push through marginal product to hit numbers. Of course, someone like Shelby, who truly cared about quality, would face pushback for having standards. So I followed her instructions exactly. Every single batch that came through for testing, I would add precisely 3.7 milliliters of her solution, mix for 90 seconds, run my tests, and every single batch failed. Not some of them, not most of them, every single one. The adhesion numbers came back terrible. The curing time was wrong. The temperature resistance did not meet minimum standards. Batch after batch after batch, all failures, all rejected, all sent away from the production line. At first, I thought maybe the facility was just having a bad week. Manufacturing has problems sometimes. Contaminated ingredients, equipment malfunctions, human error in the mixing process. These things happen, but the failures kept coming. Week 2, week 3, week 4, I rejected everything. The production team started looking at me with this mixture of frustration and confusion when I would post my reports. Entire work shifts would mix thousands of gallons, send samples to my lab, then get my rejection notice hours later. I went to Shelby in week 5, nervous that I was doing something wrong with my testing. "Why is everything failing?" I asked her. "Is there a problem with the base materials? Should we check the mixing equipment?" Shelby gave me this reassuring look that made me feel like a child asking why the sky is blue. "This is exactly what I expected," she said. "The facility has gotten sloppy with quality control. They have been pushing through batches that should not pass. And now that you are testing properly, we are seeing the real failure rate. Keep doing exactly what I taught you. Reject anything that does not meet standards. You are doing the right thing." Her confidence made me believe her. If the quality manager said this was normal, then it was normal. I was new. What did I know about how this place really operated? So I kept following her instructions. Month 2, month 3, month 4, the rejected batches piled up in massive storage units behind the facility. Industrial coatings do not just disappear, they have to be disposed of as chemical waste, which requires special permits and procedures and companies that handle hazardous materials. I would see those huge tanks filling up during my breaks, thousands and thousands of gallons of coating that had failed my tests. The facility was operating at maybe 20% of normal capacity. The production teams looked exhausted and demoralized. People were getting in trouble for the low output. Managers were yelling about quotas and deadlines and contracts that were not getting filled. The whole place felt like it was vibrating with stress. But Shelby kept telling me I was doing everything right. During our weekly check-ins, she would review my testing logs and nod with approval. "Perfect," she would say. "You are following the procedure exactly. This is what quality control looks like when you refuse to compromise." I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. This job was everything I had fought for, and if Shelby said I was doing good work, then I must be doing good work. But something small started bothering me around month 6. Something I could not quite put my finger on at first. The rejected coatings were not leaving. That was the thing that started gnawing at me. Week after week, month after month, I would walk past those storage units during my lunch break and see the same containers sitting there, baking in the sun and rain, just accumulating. I asked the production supervisor about it in month 7. He just shrugged and said disposal was not his department. I asked the safety coordinator. She told me to check with management. I finally asked Shelby directly. "When is the waste disposal company coming to remove all those rejected batches?" Shelby did not even look up from her paperwork. "They have a schedule. It is handled. Focus on your testing, not on waste logistics." But something in the way she said it felt off, like a door closing in my face. I started paying closer attention. I would walk past the storage area at different times, checking to see if the levels ever went down. They never did. More coatings arrived every week from my rejections, but nothing ever left. By month 9, there were 19 massive storage units, completely full of what was supposed to be contaminated, worthless coating. That was when I did something I probably should not have done. I took a small sample home. I lived in a basement apartment that stayed cool year-round, and I had some basic testing equipment I had bought used over the years for personal projects. Nothing fancy, but enough to run simple chemical analysis. I wanted to understand what exactly was in Shelby's special solution, what it was doing to these coatings to make every single batch fail. The initial tests showed the solution was creating a contamination in the coating formula. It was adding compounds that interfered with proper curing and adhesion. Basically, it was sabotaging the product on purpose. But why would Shelby want to sabotage the coatings? That made no sense. She had worked at the facility for 16 years. This was her career. Why would she deliberately cause failures that were hurting the entire operation? I could not figure it out. So, I did what any confused person with a chemistry background would do. I let the sample sit while I thought about it. 4 weeks later, I ran the tests again on that same sample, just out of curiosity. My hands started shaking when I saw the numbers. The coating had changed. The contamination that Shelby's solution had introduced was not destroying the coating anymore. Instead, it had reacted with the other compounds over time, creating something completely different. The aged coating showed adhesion properties that were 30% better than the original specification. The temperature resistance had improved. The flexibility was extraordinary, way beyond anything the fresh coating could do. I ran the test 3 more times to make sure I was not making a mistake. Same results every time. The contamination combined with aging had accidentally created a superior product. I sat on my apartment floor at 2 in the morning, staring at those numbers, and suddenly, Shelby's entire operation made perfect sense. She was not sabotaging the company. She was creating a massive stockpile of contaminated coating that she could purchase as worthless chemical waste for almost nothing. Let it age into this transformed superior product, then sell it somewhere else for enormous profit. The company thought they were disposing of garbage. Shelby knew she was collecting gold. It was brilliant, completely illegal and unethical, but brilliant. And she had trained me to be her perfect accomplice without me even knowing it. I should have gone to the board right then. I should have exposed what she was doing. That would have been the correct, honest thing to do. But I did not do that. Instead, I started thinking about those 19 storage units full of aging coating, thousands and thousands of gallons that Shelby had spent 9 months accumulating, planning to eventually claim as her own. What if someone else got to it first? The idea felt dangerous and reckless and absolutely intoxicating. I spent 3 days researching chemical waste disposal laws, purchase agreements, industrial salvage rights. I learned that contaminated industrial waste could be purchased by private individuals for various purposes, including art projects, experimental research, or educational use. It was not common, but it was completely legal. I found the disposal company that had the contract with the facility, a place about 40 minutes away that handled hazardous materials. I called them and explained that I was interested in purchasing some contaminated industrial coating for a personal art installation project I was developing. The guy on the phone sounded bored. "What kind of volume are you looking at?" "Whatever you have available from the facility I work at," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I know they have been generating a lot of rejected batches lately." "Yeah, we are supposed to pick that stuff up eventually." "You want all of it? How much would that cost?" He put me on hold, came back 2 minutes later. "Company usually pays us to dispose of it, but if you want to buy it instead, saves us the disposal fees. We could do maybe 6 cents a gallon. It is contaminated, though. You cannot use it for any regulated purpose." 6 cents a gallon. I did math in my head. 19 storage units, each holding roughly 2,000 gallons. That was 38,000 gallons, times 6 cents, $2,280. I had 4,000 in savings that I had been keeping for emergencies. This qualified as an emergency, just not the kind I had ever imagined. "I will take it," I said. "You got somewhere to put 38,000 gallons of contaminated coating?" I did not, but I found a place. A warehouse space about an hour away, one of those old industrial buildings that rented storage by the month for cheap because they were far from everything and falling apart. The owner did not care what I stored as long as I paid on time and it was not explosives. 2 weeks later, I owned 38,000 gallons of coating that Shelby thought she was accumulating for herself. The disposal company emptied those storage units and transported everything to my warehouse. Cost me another $800 for the transportation. The facility management was probably relieved to finally have the waste removed. They had no idea who bought it. The disposal company had no reason to tell them. And Shelby? She had no clue anything had changed. To her, the coating was just sitting in disposal company storage somewhere, waiting for her to eventually purchase it and complete her scheme. But it was gone. It was mine. I kept working at the facility like nothing had happened, kept following Shelby's instructions exactly. kept adding her solution to every batch, running the tests, rejecting everything. Month 10, month 11, month 12. More rejected coding piled up in the storage units. And every few months, I would contact the disposal company and purchase it all over again. They thought I was just some weird artist with an unusual hobby. I paid my 6 cents per gallon and they cleared out the units. By month 20, I owned 67,000 gallons. By month 25, it was 78,000 gallons, all sitting in my warehouse, aging beautifully, developing those extraordinary properties that Shelby had accidentally discovered. I started filing patent applications, not for the coating formula itself, which belonged to the facility, but for the specific aging process and application methods I had documented. The patents went through under my name because I was the one who had systematically tested and recorded how the transformation worked. I reached out to manufacturers who used industrial coatings, did not tell them where the product came from, just sent samples, and asked if they would be interested in purchasing something with these properties. The responses were immediate and enthusiastic. Multiple companies wanted exclusive supply contracts. The coating I had could do things nothing else on the market could do. I was sitting on a fortune that Shelby had spent 25 months creating for herself, except now it was mine. She had absolutely no idea. During our weekly meetings, Shelby kept praising my work. "You are doing excellent. Keep following the procedures exactly." She seemed pleased with how smoothly her scheme was running. The facility kept producing coating. I kept rejecting it. The disposal company kept removing it. Everything was going according to her plan, except the most important part. Month 27 arrived. The facility had been operating at reduced capacity for over 2 years. The financial losses were adding up to millions. The corporate leadership finally decided they needed answers about why quality control was failing so catastrophically. They called a board meeting, required attendance for all department heads and key personnel. That included Shelby. That included me. I walked into that meeting room at 9 in the morning wearing my normal work clothes, carrying nothing except a small folder. The board members sat along one side, 5 serious people in business attire who looked like they had not smiled in decades. The facility director was there, production managers, financial officers, and Shelby, sitting calm and composed like someone who had prepared for this moment. The facility director started the meeting by laying out the numbers. Production down 78% over 27 months. Millions in losses. Customer contracts unfulfilled. The company reputation damaged. Then he turned to Shelby. "You are the quality manager. Explain what happened." Shelby stood up. She had this expression of deep regret painted on her features, like someone about to deliver painful but necessary truth. "I take full responsibility for not catching this sooner," she began. "When I hired Faye as our quality inspector, I believed she had the skills and dedication needed for the position. I personally trained her on our testing procedures, walked her through every protocol, gave her clear guidance on how to maintain our quality standards." She paused, letting her words settle in the room. But despite my repeated attempts to mentor her, Faye consistently ignored my guidance. She used improper testing methods that produced false failure results. Month after month, I tried to correct her approach, but she refused to follow the established procedures. Her inability to perform proper quality control created this disaster. The board members turned to look at me. I could feel their judgment, their disappointment, their belief that Shelby was telling the truth. "She ignored my guidance," Shelby said, her voice heavy with manufactured sadness. "And this is the result." 4 words that were supposed to erase 27 months of my life and pin everything on me. I smiled. Shelby looked at me with this expression like she had already won, like my future was sealed and signed. The board members were still staring, waiting for me to defend myself or break down or do whatever people do when they get blamed for destroying millions of dollars. Instead, I opened my folder and pulled out a single sheet of paper. "You are absolutely right, Shelby," I said, my voice steady. "I followed your guidance exactly." Confusion flickered across her face. That was not the response she expected. "Every single batch that came through my lab, I did precisely what you taught me. Added exactly 3.7 milliliters of your special solution. Mixed for 90 seconds. Ran the tests. Rejected everything that failed. I have 27 months of documentation showing I followed your instructions perfectly." The room got very quiet. One of the board members leaned forward. "What solution?" she asked. I looked directly at Shelby. The The contamination additive she told me to use before testing each batch. She said it helped identify weak formulations. She said the corporate people would not understand her methods. She said this was how proper quality control worked. Shelby's expression started to crack. That is not, I never told you to contaminate. You are twisting what I said during training. Am I? I placed the paper on the surface in front of the board. It was a chemical analysis of Shelby's solution. This is what was in that unmarked container you kept in the supply area, the one you told me to use on every test sample. It creates deliberate contamination that makes coatings fail initial testing, but transforms them into something valuable after aging. The facility director picked up the paper. His eyes moved across the technical details. Here's what I could not figure out for the longest time, I continued. Why would Shelby want to sabotage production? It made no sense until I realized she was not sabotaging anything. She was creating a stockpile of contaminated waste that she could purchase for almost nothing, let it age, then sell for enormous profit. The company thinks they are disposing of worthless chemical waste. Shelby knows it transforms into a superior product worth a fortune. That is absurd, Shelby said, but her voice had lost its confidence. You have no proof of any of this. You are right. I do not have proof of your intentions, but I do have something interesting to share with everyone here. I pulled out another document. This is a receipt from the Chemical Waste Disposal Company. 27 months ago, I purchased 38,000 gallons of contaminated coating from them. The coating that had been rejected from this facility. The coating sitting in disposal company storage. Shelby's face went blank, completely empty of expression. Over the next 18 months, I continued purchasing every batch of rejected coating. 78,000 gallons total. Cost me about $4,700 since I was buying contaminated waste at 6 cents per gallon. The board members were all staring at me now. The facility director set down the chemical analysis. That coating has been aging in my warehouse this entire time, I said. And you were absolutely correct about what happens to it, Shelby. The contamination you introduced, combined with proper aging, creates extraordinary properties: superior adhesion, temperature resistance, flexibility beyond anything currently available. I have test results documenting the entire transformation process. I placed another document in front of them. I also filed patents for the aging process and application methods. Those patents were approved 4 months ago. They are in my name because I was the one who systematically tested and recorded how the transformation works. Shelby tried to speak, but nothing came out. She looked like someone watching their entire future disappear in real time. I have already sold my first shipments to manufacturers, I continued. 6 million for the first batch, 8 million for the second. I have 3 companies competing for exclusive supply contracts. They want what I have because nothing else on the market can match these properties. The room was so silent I could hear the air system humming through the vents. You spent 27 months training me to create this stockpile. You thought you were building your retirement fund, but I bought everything before you could claim it. Every single gallon. It was just contaminated garbage, right? Chemical waste the company wanted removed. The disposal company was happy to sell it to someone willing to pay a few cents per gallon. One of the board members finally spoke. Is this legally binding? Did she actually purchase company property? The facility director was already looking at his phone, probably texting the legal department. Contaminated waste sold to a disposal company becomes their property. If they sold it to a private buyer, that is a legal transaction. Shelby sat down slowly. Her manufactured confidence had completely vanished. I followed your instructions exactly, I said to her. Added your solution. Rejected every batch. Created the waste stockpile. I just did not realize I was supposed to wait for you to steal it. My mistake. The facility director turned to Shelby. Did you instruct her to contaminate test samples? No, this is all misunderstanding. She is making this sound like I deliberately. I would never, Shelby was stammering, her words falling apart. Answer the question. Did you give her a solution to add to test samples? Shelby looked at the board members, at me, at the documents sitting there with their undeniable numbers and receipts and patents. I was trying to help her learn proper testing. By contaminating samples, the testing protocols were inadequate. I developed a more thorough approach. That cost this facility millions in losses and production delays. Shelby had no answer for that. What could she say? That she deliberately sabotaged production to create a stockpile she planned to steal? That she trained me to be her accomplice? That that her entire scheme had been turned against her by someone who actually paid attention. The meeting continued for another hour. Legal teams got involved. Executives arrived. Everyone wanted to understand exactly what had happened, how it had happened, whether there were criminal violations or just catastrophic incompetence. Shelby tried to claim I had stolen proprietary information. The legal team confirmed that contaminated waste legally purchased from a disposal company was not company property. She tried to claim the patents were invalid. The patent office disagreed. She tried to claim I had acted unethically. The ethics investigation found that purchasing industrial waste was not illegal and I had not signed any agreements preventing me from doing so. Every direction she turned, the walls closed in tighter. Within a week, Shelby was terminated. Not for attempted theft, which would have been difficult to prove since she never actually stole anything. Instead, she was fired for gross negligence, for implementing unauthorized testing procedures that cost millions, for creating a disaster that crippled production for over 2 years, for training an employee to contaminate samples without proper authorization or documentation. Her career in industrial manufacturing ended that day. 16 years of building reputation and connections, gone. The industry is small enough that word spreads fast. Other companies heard about what happened at our facility. Nobody wanted to hire the manager whose quality control methods accidentally made someone else rich while destroying her own company. She found work eventually, a small facility 3 states away that manufactures basic sealants. A tiny operation with maybe 15 employees. She makes a fraction of her old position, works under someone else, has no authority, no reputation, no future advancement. Sometimes I wonder if she thinks about those 78,000 gallons. The fortune she accidentally created, the superior coating she discovered through her scheme, the employee she trained so well that I understood the process better than she did. As for me, my 3rd shipment sold for $9.5 million, my 4th for $11 million. The manufacturers I work with now are begging for more supply. I have contracts extending 3 years into the future. The warehouse I rent has expanded to 3 buildings. I hired a team to manage production and quality control because I cannot handle the volume alone. The facility where I used to work, they came to me 6 months after that board meeting, sent representatives with a proposal to purchase my coating, to license my patents, to bring this revolutionary product back to the company where it was accidentally discovered. I listened to their offer. It was generous, more money than I had ever imagined having. Then I remembered Shelby standing in front of those board members, saying, she ignored my guidance with that look of false disappointment. I remembered 27 months of following her instructions while she planned to blame me for everything. I remembered how close I came to being destroyed by her scheme. I told them my price, triple their offer, non-negotiable. They could pay it or walk away. They paid it. I still work with industrial coatings, not as a quality inspector anymore. Now I own the process. I control the supply. Manufacturers come to me because nobody else can provide what I have. The coating that Shelby accidentally discovered is transforming how structures get protected from weather and time. And every time I sign a contract, every time money moves into my accounts, I think about her words. She ignored my guidance. She was right. I did ignore her guidance. The part where I was supposed to be her unknowing accomplice. The part where I was supposed to take the blame. The part where she got rich and I got destroyed. I ignored that guidance completely. Instead, I followed her instructions exactly, added her solution, rejected her batches, created her stockpile. I just made sure it became mine before she could claim it. That is how you turn someone's scheme into your fortune. You pay attention, you understand what they are really doing, and you beat them at their own plan before they even realize you are playing. Thank you so much for listening to my story all the way to the end. If you found this valuable, if it made you think differently about following instructions or paying attention to what is really happening around you, please hit that like button. Drop a comment telling me what you thought about how this turned out. And subscribe because I love sharing these experiences with people who appreciate hearing the truth about how life actually works. Your support means everything. Until next time, remember this. Sometimes, the best move is not fighting against someone's scheme. Sometimes the best move is understanding it better than they do and getting there first.